And that one decision cost me well over six figures.
Representing Franchise Secrets, Erik Van Horn.
Hey, Franchise Secrets. Today, you've got me, and I'm going to be talking about what I am actively doing. It's been a few weeks in the making. It's actually been a lot longer in the making in terms of a franchise that my investment group is about ready to buy out as a franchisee. When I say it's been a long time in the making, we've been working on a number of different deals, and a lot of them have fallen through. They haven't been the right one for us, and until this one. So I'm going to talk about how I found it, how the process is going, and what I see moving forward in the future. And hopefully this will help a lot of you if you are a franchisee or a franchise buyer on how I look at deals within franchising. But when I say it started a long time ago, it was a number of years ago when I was on the other side. I was a seller, and I wasn't selling, making a lot of money. I was actually going to lose a lot of money if I sold. And I held off. I thought, well, we can turn this around. You know, I didn't live in the state. None of us business partners lived in state. We were out of state, trying to manage from a distance in a business that needed someone local there. So when you see me put out a lot of content about owning franchises, it all comes from experience. I'm not just talking about what I see or hear other people out there talking about or what franchisors tell me. It's all about what I've experienced, not probably just once, but multiple times, and my friends have as well. So here I was, a part of a brand that needed somebody that was in the business locally with an owner mindset. And with an owner mindset, they probably should have some equity, because equity really gives you the owner mindset. And so I thought, well, shoot, we can hire somebody and they will get that revenue built up. They will get more customers in the door. We will start making money. And so we can sell for a profit. And fast forward a year from that original conversation, when we had somebody that could have bought it for pennies on the dollar, we're like, no, we want more than pennies on the dollar. And that one decision cost me well over six figures, because we spent over six figures over the next year trying to keep that thing afloat. And it was money that was just wasted. Like, we literally lost six figures by waiting and holding on to an asset that was sinking. And it wasn't sink, and it was sinking a large part because of us. Now, I could blame all kinds of other people, but here I am losing money, and I'm the franchise guy. And I talked openly about this because I believe, challenges really, help you become more successful in the future. People that have scars, I trust people that have scars from past bad deals, past failures, past things that they've learned from. I don't want a lot of those, but I respect people that have been through it. And so we sold that thing for, like, I don't think we got any money out of it. I think we just were like, hey, you take it over. And we walked away from that. Lost a lot of money. The $100,000 plus was just a little bit of the money that we lost. We lost a lot of money in that. And I can comfortably say that because I've made a lot more money in franchising. And I knew that we were going to be making more money again. I told my business partner then, I said, we are on the losing end of this deal now, but let's learn from it, because we will be a buyer at some point. Well, fast forward a few years, we're looking for certain purchase options now. And we put the word out there with neighboring franchisees, other franchisees, that we are a buyer. And then a deal came up, and it was a very similar deal to the deal that we sold early on. So it's a deal where we're basically taking over a couple locations, and these locations aren't really even losing any money, but the seller needs to get out of it for various different reasons. And so here we are the buyers of this thing. And so I want to kind of break it down for everyone. but I want to give you that context that I've been on both sides of this. So kind of first of all, the mindset of a distressed seller. You want to negotiate with them. You want to know how to spot that distressed seller and how to win and how to structure something as a win-win. And when I say negotiate it, you really they need to be in the right mindset, not just a distressed seller, but they need to be a distressed seller in the mindset of, I need to get rid of this thing so I don't lose another $100,000. I was not in the right mindset a year earlier from when I sold my locations. And so the time that I was in the right mindset, I'm like, I've lost a lot of money already. I just lost $100,000 because I didn't sell it sooner. I was in the right mindset. Most sellers have no idea what buyers are actually looking for. And I know this because I used to be one of them. So there's pressure that can get to you. You're burned out. You have operational chaos. You have a manager that just quits. These are all kinds of things that can happen. And you need to understand those levers that you can pull when you're getting ready to negotiate with them. So as a buyer, you can see, you got to look when buyers are hiding something. Are they hiding employees that are about ready to quit? Are they hiding members or members that member shift that is completely shifting and the momentum's going the wrong way? Or do they just want out? And you want somebody that just wants out, and they understand that you are getting a good deal, but they also understand you are taking on risk as well. So there's things that buyers never say out loud, because I've been the buyer. I've been the buyer in the past. And here I am being a buyer talking to you all. But buyers, there's things that they just don't want to say out loud. Like, is this seller reliable post-close? When this closes, are they going to be there to help in that transition? Because it's really nice to have somebody helping in a transition. Or are they going to spook people too early and blow something up? Or are they hiding financial landmines? And then can I just replace them? Like, were they involved in the business and they leave? Like, is everybody else going to leave because that owner was the nice person, or they were involved and they had, certain people that were there because of them? So if they are gone, like, what happens to the employees? What happens to the culture? So you really need to focus on risk control as a buyer. So I'm going to talk a bit about how I structure these types of things. And I always start out with a LOI, letter of intent. And so there's certain things that you want in the clause. You want in that letter of intent. And just a side note, inside the Franchise Secrets Facebook group, I'm going to start giving away some of the custom GPTs for ChatGPT that I've created. And I have one that is on an existing business buyer. And I've used that GPT, I've trained that GPT to help in creation of the LOI. I have another one that is just reviewing leases. I have a bunch of leases uploaded to it to train it on leases. Kicks out a 2, soon to be 300-point checklist that rates them. And so it really, really helps me when I'm negotiating leases as I get involved in new locations, or I'm acquiring existing leases. And like, for instance, this one of them is a pretty solid lease. One of them is not so much. So we have to really run it through that custom GPT, make sure that we are able to stomach some of those things that we don't like about that lease. But some of the other things that you want to think about in that LOI is employee transition. What happens if you are, I'm not a fan of buying out the entity of the existing franchisee. I don't want to buy their LLC or C Corp or whatever it is. I don't want that. I don't want to inherit liabilities. I want to have a new LLC created for this new location, and I want to have employees sign new employment contracts with me. And if the seller has normal employment contracts with them, I'm okay taking on the existing employees that we want to take on, having those employees at the same pay rate, but they're under my entity and they're under my employment agreement. It just saves a lot of headaches. So just think about something like that. And typically, like, they will fire or terminate the employees, not because of anything that they did wrong, but because they're terminating that agreement and they're getting hired under the new agreement. Just like, think about it this way, like with the landlord, they are, well, that's not a good example because typically the seller has to stay on the lease as a personal guarantor. But we are signing a new lease, and or utilities. The seller sells to us, the electric company. Now we have a contract with them. The old seller, the old owner, gets off of that. Just like that's how it happens with employees as well. So you just need to think through employees and not just how to make it as easy as a transition as possible, but you need to be thinking legally. How does that work? Are there unintended consequences? And I think that's something that you always need to ask yourself, like, oh, this makes sense. I want it done this way because it's easy, or it's simple, or because it's good for employee transition, or it's good for whatever the thing is good for. But you need to ask yourself, what could the unintended consequences be? And there's usually unintended consequences of this. So I'm always a fan of hiring an attorney, making sure that you have your I's dotted and T's crossed, getting advice from them. But back to the LOI. Another thing that you want to think about with the LOI is the revenue. I've seen people get burned, or maybe they have large benefits. Somebody does. Let's say they are selling packages. If it's there's a $1,000 package, and they get 20 massages or 100 massages, whatever that package is. So they sell it, and let's say they've sold 10 of those. So they have $10,000 of income that went to that store owner, and now the new owner has to fulfill all of that and does not get any of that income. So they have expenses related to the income that came in to the seller in the past. And so I've heard, horror stories about this. They're like, I had no idea that they had a special at the beginning of the year, the January 1st special where, Cyber Monday or whatever it is, that they collected all this revenue for the special thing, but it was delivered throughout the year. And now the new owner has to deliver, and it costs them all kinds of money to deliver on the product or the service that the seller collected all of that revenue. So you need to be thinking about that. One thing that you might want to do is proration. If we deliver the service as the buyer, we get a piece of that revenue. Lease assignments, cover that in the LOI, talk about that. And you might not have the full conclusion of what's going to happen because a lot of that depends on the landlord. The landlord will give you a thumbs up if they will let you have the lease assigned to you, and they'll give you a thumbs up or thumbs down if they're going to let the seller off of that personal guarantee. There's a lot of things that can be done about that, but you just need to be aware of that. You need to have deep conversations with the landlord to understand the different expenses associated with that. You need to review that lease. There's usually assignment fees and whatnot. You need to figure out who's paying for what. You figure out the deposits, who gets does the seller get the deposit back? And if so, when? All of those kinds of things. And then also indemnification. And this is all kind of good stuff that you should talk to your attorney about. I'm a fan of getting a lot of this out in the LOI, getting it open before you really start racking up attorney bills. So the more that you can do in the LOI, just you and the buyer, or the buyer and the seller, just talking about like what they really want, what their intentions are, the better. But if you've never bought a business or sold a business, you might be at a disadvantage depending how that other party is. Like if they're taking advantage of you and that's their MO, or if they're just trying to find a win-win solution to this. And I think there are probably more people than you realize that are really just looking for win-win situations where the buyer is not trying to take advantage of the seller. They're wanting a good deal, a fair deal, but they also understand the risks that come with it, or they understand the amount of money that they're going to pay for it because it comes with a predictable multiple based off of the income that you're that's coming into the business if it's not a distressed situation. So I've had different people that have acquired a lot of businesses. David Shuck is one of them. He's a friend. We were buddies way back when in the tax business, and he's buying multiple different brands as a franchisee. And I don't know how many locations he has, but I bet it's north of 100 by now. But he can't do that without having a good reputation with sellers. So he has to have a good reputation with sellers. And I did an episode with him, and he's spoken to the mastermind multiple times. So you think about and then I've had somebody on that was with Anytime Fitness, and they are growing through acquisition. Same thing. And I've had private off camera conversations with them, and it's, what they're saying on camera is what they say off camera. And that's not always true. So to go it's not always true with everybody, because some people will say one thing in private and something different in public. But that's just something to be aware of. You want to strive for that win-win situation, and do your research. Whether you're the buyer or the seller, just do your research. And it's never been easier to do research, especially with me starting to give away some of these custom GPTs that I've built. I've been giving a lot of them away to mastermind members already, and I'm going to start creating some for the general public. All right. So again, back to employees just for a little bit. I want to make sure that we hit on this. Do not buy a business and just keep the employees as is. That's how you inherit lawsuits. That's how you inherit trouble. That's where like if the seller didn't fire anyone and I had to decide who I'd rehire, it gets real uncomfortable really fast, because now it's your problem well, I guess it's everybody's problem, but it's just a big mess if that's not decided up front and how it's handled, and it could become your problem as the buyer of the business. So you need to pay attention to employees. So we kind of do a hybrid structure with that. That way it gives the seller some flexibility, and it gives us some flexibility as a buyer, to make sure nobody gets in trouble legally, that employees aren't left in the dark and they're left in limbo. But we do some type of hybrid between those two things of making the buyer, forcing the buyer to terminate them, and then hiring anybody that we want.
Attention, franchisors and franchisees. There are two really important resources that I want to share with you that will help you avoid costly mistakes and increase your enterprise value. The first is our free Facebook group. It's a community that has over 4,000 franchisees and franchisors in it. When somebody asks a question, they get honest and authentic answers from multiple perspectives. You can join the group for free over at franchisesecrets.com/Facebook. The second resource I want to share with you is if you're a franchisor and you're frustrated that you're not awarding as many franchises as you thought you would, this is the reason I created the Franchisor Mastermind. If you want access to the information, the techniques that the best franchise sales organizations are using to award franchises, and you want what mature brands have with their playbook of having happy, successful franchisees that grow the right way, then you might want to check out the Franchisor Mastermind. The reason why people join is they want access to my Rolodex, my connections. They want the playbook to achieve both short-term and long-term success. They want to increase enterprise value in their brand. Links will be in the show notes or at scalablefranchise.com.
You need to make sure that the culture is right. You need to understand what the culture really is. What we've done is we've heard from the seller what he thinks this culture is like. And then we did some secret shopping. We went in, we've done things on the phone, just learning to come in as a possible customer. We've been in and as a real customer. We wanted to, and just looking around and just being aware of that. And you can really start to understand the culture of the business and the employees just by being a customer. So I would always suggest that. Because one of the worst things is if you have to do a full reset of culture, and it gets real tough. It's one thing to turn around a business with that's losing money. It's much harder if you have to turn around a business that's losing money because they're not marketing as much and whatnot. The real problem is culture and employees and bad employees. That becomes much more difficult. I like businesses that the problem is a revenue and a profitability problem because maybe they have too many employees working, because that's typically what owners that are not actively involved are overhire and have too many people working, or they are not marketing enough or marketing within the right channels. So those are the levers that I like to pull versus seeing it as a cultural thing that I have to deal with. So I think and in general, moving on to a different subject, is when you are dealing with LOI and you're dealing with expenses and revenue, you just really want to do something that's fair, and you might just want to prorate the expenses and the revenue. Maybe if it's a membership model, prorate it by usage by the month, and then just verify everything. I would look at, if it's a membership model and yet they've sold like packages where they're not a member, but they've bought expensive packages to come in and use the product or the service at different times. You want to understand how many they've sold, what was the amount of revenue collected, and what kind of services still need to be provided. That's important. All right, let's see. From a turnaround, like, there's always going to be some type of turnaround after you acquire. I don't care if you don't think that there's probably going to be something that needs to get turned around. People, it's just, once you take it over, you need to evaluate, spend time with them, evaluate the team. Don't be afraid to let people go, but you need to really understand who it is that needs to be let go and why. And you just really need to dig in there. And maybe there's some customer surveys that you need to do. And maybe that can even be done beforehand, customer surveys. We've done, I can remember we've done customer surveys in the past or before or after, but customer surveys help to kind of see what the customers say about the employees or the culture. And you start to understand, is it a management thing, or is it a front level employee type thing? Like, where's the breakdown? Where's the team breaking down? Who needs to be replaced? You need to understand the ops playbooks, the scorecards. You need to have accountability loops. You need to understand everything that they use as a process, from meetings to like sales meetings, marketing. You need to understand all of their playbooks, and to see if it aligns with yours. And then you really need to put and this is talking to somebody that already has an existing playbook in place, that is, you're going in there to put your proven playbook in place, but you need to do it the right way. So you just need to be thinking about what you're going to do once you take it over. There's some things that made me a better buyer, things that I've learned over the years. So I used to be the seller just trying to get out. I just wanted to get out of it. And now, I'm the buyer that has the leverage. Like, I did not have the leverage as the seller. Now as the buyer, I have the leverage. And usually the buyer does have the leverage in this type of situation. But what selling my business taught me about empathy and ego and exit strategy. I had no ego. When I first lost money in franchising, I thought I was before that, I thought I was the smartest franchising guy ever. I thought I knew how to pick the best brands, run them the right way, do everything right, until something didn't work. And so the thing that I thought it was me, I thought I was amazing at everything. Then I realized it broke. And there are decisions that I made thinking I was better than I was at whatever it is, operations, marketing, sales, whatever it was that I thought I was better at. I realized that I wasn't better. And so I started to understand my own weaknesses. And that gave me empathy as I started to understand other people in a similar type situation. And this happened a long time ago. I've lost money a couple times in franchising. Fortunately, many times more, I've done really well, and a couple of them I did very well. But I have the scars, and so I think it's helped me understand what a seller is going through when they are selling and they're getting ready to lose a lot of money. Probably, maybe they had they took a home equity line out, or they still have loans to pay off, or whatever it is. Like, I feel for them, but I also understand the risk that I'm about ready to take over if it doesn't work, if we're not able to do what I think we're going to be able to do. So I really look for fair deals. I want something fair for the buyer and the seller. I don't want a lot of drama. I just want it pretty simple. And again, I hear this from other people that are in my position that are buying out existing franchisees. So kind of to wrap this up, if you were the seller, package your business up like someone is really inspecting it. Like, even if it is distressed, you need to get it all ready, the warts and the bloody, the blood, the mess, everything, because someone needs to understand it. And it's okay that it's a bloody mess, but you need to have it ready and simple for them, from leases to landlord stuff to the numbers, and then tell the story. And you really need to understand, especially if you're that distressed buyer, do you want to get the best price, or do you want peace of mind? I wanted the best price early on when I tried to make the business worth more, which ended up costing me a lot more. What I really realized is I wanted peace of mind. I wanted out of that business at a loss, and then to move on to do things that make me money. And if I'd done that earlier, the $100,000 was the easy thing to lose. I lost, time, mental energy, all of that. So that was the bigger loss for me. So as a seller, just keep that in mind. As a buyer, your job is to control the risk, not just the price. Like I said, we're getting these at an amazing price, like absolutely amazing price, and they're solid assets. But I'm always thinking of risk. And my job, as I am coaching my operational partners along, is we need to be thinking about risk with the landlord, risk with different loans, risk with employees, risk with customers. There's all kinds of risks that you need to be thinking about. So I'm not trying to get a better price, because we're getting a great price already, but I would even pay more money to eliminate all this kind of risk that we could possibly be taking over. So that's something to think about as a buyer. You've got to be mindful of the risk. Now, I should talk about it on another episode of buying, like, performing assets that you're buying them. They may be paying a 4x multiple because you have a plan to increase revenue. You have a plan to roll up a number of them. Maybe it's in a certain market, maybe it's across the country, maybe it's a certain amount, and then you can roll them up, sell them to a buyer that is a bigger buyer. And that's similar to what we did in one of my brands, where we built 12 locations, and then the buyer for that was a private equity buyer. They wouldn't have bought us if we had just a few locations in a market that wasn't attractive to them. So, but that's a different episode for a different time. Hope you found this one helpful. Join that Franchise Secrets Facebook group. I'm going to be putting some of those custom GPTs in there, and hopefully find them helpful.
Thanks for listening to the Franchise Secrets podcast. Links to everything can be found over at franchisesecrets.com. And if you want my help with anything from starting your own franchise to growing your current franchise business, please visit scalablefranchise.com.